Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar titled Artificial Intelligence, Human Agency and the Common Good. Um, in the interest of time, we're going to skip introductions. However, if you'd like to learn more about me, Father Hillary, or Dr. Katie, you can go to our LinkedIn accounts and you can see our bios there. On your screen, you should be able to see three faces, three humans. You can actually see Father Hillary. He's in his attire. And then you see Dr. Viduera and myself in the red. Again, I'm the director of the Institute for Ethical Leadership. Father Hillary, he's the Associate Dean and Assistant Professor of Theology and Ministry here at St. Thomas University. And Dr. Viduera, she's an Assistant Professor in Ethical Leadership here at St. Thomas University. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to please mute yourselves to avoid any interruptions. Thank you. All right, so why don't we go to the first slide? You should be able to see my screen. The agenda for this morning or for this hour would be we're going to do a prayer as customary for St. Thomas University. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to cover the genesis of the 7 standards. Then we're going to go into a deeper dive of the 7 AI ethical standards. Then Father Hillary is going to cover Catholic intellectual tradition and Catholic social teaching. Dr. Viduera will cover the impact of AI on marginal groups. And then we're going to talk about next step as a group, and then we're going to open it up to question and answer. We hope we timed it correctly to give us enough time for the Q&A at the end. But in the meantime, if you want to put any questions into the chat box, that would be fine as well. So without further ado, Father, if you'd be so kind to start us off with a prayer.
Sure. Sure. Welcome, everyone. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Let us observe a minute silence in honor of the victims and survivors of the 9/11 attack. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of mercy and peace, today we remember with solemn hearts the tragedy of September 11. We commend the victims to your eternal embrace, lift up the survivors, and pray for the families who continue to bear its grief. May their memory call us to the steadfast builders of peace, justice, and reconciliation. We ask you, Lord, to bless our gathering today on artificial intelligence, human agency, and the common good. Grant our panelists and participants wisdom and humility, that our reflections may guide the ethical use of AI, always in defense of human dignity, in service of the common good, in solidarity with one another, and in creating a world where all may contribute meaningfully to society. Finally, Lord, look kindly upon St. Thomas University, strengthen its mission and vision to form minds and hearts, and inspire it to be a beacon that champions the ethical use of artificial intelligence for the good of the global human family. May our work here today honor you, the source of all truth and wisdom. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Father. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So you can say it in silent in your head if you'd like. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So very quickly, I wanted to do an interview of St. Thomas University for those who might not be familiar with St. Thomas University. We're located in South Florida in the city of Miami Gardens, and we're considered the first bullet, the South's premier Catholic university. We're a private nonprofit institution committed to fostering students' academic and professional success and helping them become ethical leaders, emphasis added, in the global community. we're at Miami Archdiocesan University, the only one in in Florida, and one of just 11 nationwide. So we're very special to have that designation. We offer more than 60 undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate degree programs online and on the university's beautiful Miami Gardens campus. We serve a diverse student body of over 8,000 undergraduate, graduate, and dual enrollment students from all faiths and traditions. And emphasis added that we welcome all faiths and traditions to St. Thomas University. And St. Thomas University is the home of the Institute for Ethical Leadership, a premier hub for thought leadership and values-driven policy, education, and civic engagement. And what makes this special, or extra special, I should say, is that we're about one of 5 institutes of ethical leadership in the entire country, emerging as the thought leader in values-driven policy, education, and civic engagement. So the genesis of the 7 AI ethical standards, I want to emphasize the fact that this is a vision that was created by our president, David Armstrong, which he shares a strong commitment to educating students in both the rich history of the American Republic and empowering them with the technical knowledge necessary for them to be successful in their respective careers. Part of graduating informed citizens requires them to also be ethical leaders, emphasis added. With the advent of AI, the president believed it critical that we establish clear guidelines for the use of AI. St. Thomas University then convened a handful of faculty experts in information technology, artificial intelligence, ethics, and theology, to draft standards. And this is a process that took about a year. And I want to emphasize that this is not just an academic exercise. It is an academic exercise with the understanding that what we came up with, or what we published, the 7 standards, are applicable universally to any industry, whether it's healthcare, law, nursing, corporate America, and not only inside of the US, but also applicable outside of the US. And then the second to last bullet is these standards can be used to develop specific policies and procedures, which we'll look at later on in this talk, for each area of society, like I said, whether healthcare, business, logistics, education, et cetera. And the last bullet, they were developed over the course of a year with feedback from the community, members, industry, and the advisor board of the Institute for Ethical Leadership. So again, I emphasize this, that this is not just an academic exercise, and they're not abstract principles. They're real world principles that could be applied every day as we look at artificial intelligence. So the 7 AI ethical standards are there on your screen. The first one, the first bullet, is respect for human dignity. Its AI systems must honor a person's dignity by safeguarding their privacy, ensuring informed consent, and preventing exploitation. By the way, if you go to the chat section, you will see that I provided the link where you can access the 7 standards for ethical AI. The second bullet is the promotion of the common good. AI should be oriented toward the welfare of all, especially the vulnerable, and designed to reduce inequalities and foster human development. The third bullet, transparency and accountability. AI must be developed with mechanisms for transparency and clear accountability for ethical oversight, enhancement of human capability. AI should augment, emphasis added, human intelligence and creativity, not diminish it. Stewardship and creation and peace. AI development must align with ecological ethics and reject any use that threatens human life, dignity, and the environment. Formation and solidarity and participation. AI should offer all, especially the technologically marginalized, which is Dr. Katie will cover this, the opportunity to actively participate in its development. And the last bullet, the primacy of human judgment and control. AI should always be directed toward human flourishing and safeguarding human judgment and decision-making. So you might be thinking, well, 7 standards, I see them all over social media, LinkedIn. I've read different companies put them out. So what's so innovative about these 7 standards for ethical AI is because most standards or guidances surrounding AI focus on the common good, while ours take it a step further, and we not only focus on the common good, but we focus on human flourishing, which is the foundation that should really be addressed in order to be really creating systems, policies, technology based on ethical AI. And Father Hillary will speak more to that in a couple of minutes. And I'm going to move forward to the next slide. So why so innovative? As I said, although rooted in the Catholic intellectual tradition, which Father Hillary will cover in a couple of minutes, the standards are universal. They're just not an academic exercise. Universal in that the standards can be used, adopted by all industries, and STU's approach is a holistic approach, not only focusing on the common good, like I said, but human flourishing with emphasis added. Human flourishing is our approach, serves as the foundation upon which AI should be developed and used. So I'm going to hand it over to Father Hillary. And Father Hilly, just tell me when you want me to advance to the next slide. I think you're muted, Father Hilly. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
It's still muted? Okay.
No, I can hear you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. So the Catholic Church, the St. Thomas University is a Catholic university, and our mission and vision is woven into the Catholic intellectual tradition. And one of the things that the Catholic Church is currently talking about a lot, especially in recent times, starting from Pope Benedict XVI in 2005 to the current Pope, Pope Leo, is about AI, the potential benefits and the ethical considerations that should drive the use of AI. Next slide, please. So Pope Benedict XVI, said that if technical progress is not matched by corresponding progress in ethical formation in our inner growth, then it is not progress at all, but a threat to humanity and for the world. So here at St. Thomas University, we understand that AI is a very big thing that could be bigger than the internet. And we know that it is going to drive a lot of progress, but we also know that it has potential dangers if we do not use them ethically. So we want to champion the ethical use of AI to form our students ethically while exposing them to the benefits of AI and also helping them to use those ethical knowledge that they have to become ethical leaders in the world, globally, wherever they are, so that AI can be used for human flourishing, as Dr. Franco was saying earlier, and not for nefarious purposes. And Pope Francis also followed up in the next slide. We see that Pope Francis is talking about artificial intelligence that it should be used only as a product of human intelligence that is meant to augment it, to complement it, to support, rather than to replace its natural richness. So the church is trying to remind us that God created us in his image and likeness, and he enriched us. So human intelligence is rich. And in fact, AI is one out of many riches that the human intelligence can offer us. So when we use AI, we should use it as a product, as a human product, and not something that could replace humanity. And that is why we need to be very careful to use it ethically and know where we need AI and where we should continue to promote human intelligence in a way that it will never be replaced by AI. And then Pope Leo in the next slide, who is the current Pope, and by the way, he's the first American Pope, and he was elected this year. And he said that the benefits and risks of artificial intelligence should be judged based on how they contribute to the comprehensive or the holistic development of individuals and societies. So last year, early this year, St. Thomas University launched its new strategic plan that will last for the next 10 years. And in our vision there, our strategic vision is to offer our students a holistic college experience. So we are looking at the bigger picture. And Pope Leo is telling us that we need to look at the bigger picture of AI and judge it based on how it contributes to the integral human development, to the good of everyone and not to the good of some individuals or some societies. So we need to make it equitably available for everyone. And that is why in the next slide, we now see how we came about these 7 ethical standards here at St. Thomas University, that we dug into the Catholic social teaching, which is the core of the social aspect of the Catholic intellectual tradition, which is not just about the dogmas or the doctrines of the Catholic Church, but, an invitation, an exhortation to people of goodwill, people everywhere, whether they are religious or not, whether they are Catholics or Christians or not, but human beings generally. And we actually to emphasize human dignity, the common good, and transparency. And these 7 standards are based on the 4 major principles of the Catholic social teaching, as we would see in the next slide. So these principles include the human dignity, the common good, solidarity, which is support or collaboration, and then subsidiarity, which is about participation. So when you read the 7 standards, you see that the first, the fourth, and the seventh items on our ethical standards account for human dignity. So out of 7 standards, 3 of them are from addressing human dignity, because human dignity is the backbone, is the foundation of everything. That we were created in the image and likeness of God, and every human being needs to be treated with respect and dignity. So the first item is talking about respect for human dignity. This fourth item is talking about the enhancement of human capabilities to promote every human's dignity. And finally, the 7th one is talking about the primacy of human judgment and control over artificial intelligence, and not the other way around. So that these 3 ethical standards help us to promote the human dignity. And once we believe in the human dignity, then we work for the good of everyone, to promote everybody's dignity, which is the common good. As we would see also that in the next slide, we would see that our ethical standards also cover the common good. Which means the sustainable flourishing of all community and all human beings. Not just flourishing, but it must be sustainable. It must be sustained across generations, across races, across peoples, across cultures and languages. It has to be, the common good has to be truly common, and AI should be used in a way that is good for everyone. And that's why our 2nd standard is talking about the promotion of the common good. And our 5th standard is talking about the stewardship of creation and peace. So the human dignity and the common good take the bulk of it, 5 out of 7, because that's actually where the whole thing lies. You have to believe in humanity and the dignity of every human person in order for you to work for the common good. Now we realize that while working for the common good, we are, gifted in different ways. Some are more gifted than others in certain things. Some have more resources than others in certain things. And that's why the next slide will now tell us how our ethical standards wants to account for everyone, so that we can be our brothers and sisters keepers in solidarity, by using AI to support people and see that there is an equitable participation of people, because technology is not evenly distributed across the globe. But we can now use AI to give access to people who are already marginalized or disadvantaged. So we are also accounting for them in our ethical standards. And then you look at the 4th principle now, which is solid subsidiarity, in the next slide, where it talks about participation of everybody. And here we are talking about equitable participation. The AI system should be used in a transparent manner that also gives accountability, so that everybody in the community will know where this is coming from and where it is going, and know where they fit in. So we should not just have people who act as gatekeepers, deciding who to let in and who not to let in. AI should be treated as a common human patrimony, as something that as a gift that we all have received from God through human intelligence, and something that should serve everybody equally. And in the next slide now, where we look at the statistics, we see how the principles of the Catholic social teaching, the human dignity, common goods, solidarity, and subsidiarity, help us account for the ethical standards here at St. Thomas University, which drives the point that Dr. Franco was making, that these things were not abstract. We did not just plug them out of thin air. We thought about it, we looked at the society, and being a Catholic university, we also dug into our Catholic intellectual tradition and used these time-tested principles that the Catholic Church has taught for more than 2,000 years to make this ethical standard, something that will apply for people across board. Thank you all.
Thank you, Father Hillary. Quick question before we move on to Dr. Villanueva's section. I've been getting a good amount of questions asking why not 7 moral standards? Why did we choose 7 ethical standards as opposed to 7 moral standards? And I know
Oh,
that at one point, if you
okay.
can address that, yeah,
I can
thank you.
address that. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. So, yes, there is there is always this confusion between morality and ethics. So I'm a moral theologian, but I'm also a theological ethicist. So what is the difference between morality and ethics? So morality talks about the person, whether you are a good person or a bad person. So when we talk about a moral act, we are actually talking about the goodness or the badness of the act. But this can also have its own values from where you are coming from. So, for instance, what is morally right for a Christian might be morally wrong for a Muslim. What is morally right? So there is always this cultural valuation, or a religious valuation about morality that could make it sometimes subjective. On the other hand, ethics has to do with rightness or the wrongness of an action, right living, right relationship within a community or a society. So this does not have cultural or religious background, even though the values that drive it can be sourced from religious background, like we have our Catholic social teaching, but it applies to everybody across board, and it does not judge whether this person is a good person or a bad person. What it's saying is these are the standards, these are the ways that we can live in order to act rightly towards others, so that we can have better, equitable relationship in society, irrespective of the morality that we hold dear to our heart. Yeah. So that's the difference. So we are talking about the objective, actions, whether they are right or wrong. We are not talking about the individual behind the action, whether they are good people or bad people. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Val. So in essence, what we've created, we're trying to create the foundation for social norms or behaviors
Mhm.
surrounding artificial intelligence. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So it's about the social norms for our behaviors. And then, the morality is more or less left, to the individual and their background, the faith background, their cultural background, and so on and so forth. But what we are doing here is the ethics, the norms of behavior that is across board, that does not necessarily have to be from a particular religious background or something.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Okay, Dr. Bibi, you're up next. Let me move over to your first slide. So
Awesome.
she's going to
Thank you.
cover. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're all good. No, thank you
Yeah,
so
I
much.
was.
Thank you, Dr. Franco.
You're welcome. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All good. So as Dr. Franco said, I'm Dr. Katie B. Duera, and I'll be talking about the impact of AI on marginalized groups. So thank you all for being here. Okay. So we all know that AI shapes human lives and it's become a part of our daily lives, whether we like it or not, right? So we see it in really almost every field, including healthcare, education. We even see it in policing. We see it in job hiring, so in HR. And of course, probably the most common place we see it is in social media, right, with our algorithms. But even though it affects us all daily, it doesn't affect all groups equally, right? So essentially, we can say this because of the way AI is often built, right? So there's bias built into AI through the data, the historical data that it uses, and there's also bias in the use and accessibility of AI. So because of this, we can ask questions of equity and autonomy. So the two main questions I think we should ask is, does AI benefit every person? And does AI allow for autonomous agency? Okay, and of course, I'll talk a little bit about what autonomous agency is a little bit towards the end of the presentation. But let's start with the first question. So next slide, please. So does AI benefit everyone? So of course, I think the answer is that it can benefit everyone. but we have to make sure that it does, right? We have to be careful and be, wary and aware when it seems like it might actually harm certain groups and maybe only benefit a select few. So what are the potential harms? So I think there's 3 primary harms, at least currently in the state of AI. I think the first harm, specifically for marginalized groups, is that the bias built into AI can perpetuate injustice. And the second harm is that the unequal access to AI technologies can prevent marginalized communities from benefiting from AI, right? And that's a problem that always happens when there's new things up and coming, right? We have to make sure that everyone has equal access to it. And then the third harm has to do with the environmental impact, right? So AI's negative environmental impact actually disproportionately impacts marginalized communities because of the location of the data centers. Okay, so
Dr. Katie, really quick, can we help everyone
Yeah.
define what we mean by marginalized communities?
Sure, for sure. So a marginalized community, as I see it, is essentially a community that's not considered dominant. So they don't essentially have much of a say in the norms or the social norms that dictate how society runs. Typically, we think of a marginalized community as sometimes being considered inferior. Usually, there's stereotypes associated with them. That's marginalized, right? So they're sometimes at the outside, they're not considered first and foremost. They're just not the dominant group and the people with power.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, great clarification. Okay, great. So again, let's start with this first harm. So bias within AI. And again, I think this is probably the biggest harm because it has the potential to perpetuate injustice. So AI systems, when they're being developed, they're trained on historical data, right? So it's given data by humans and data that's been dominant historically and really infused with this dominant narrative, right? So AI mimics this, right? And it prioritizes dominant social identities, which then amplifies injustice, right? So there's a lot of examples of this, but I think the clearest one is really from Amazon. So they tried to use AI in their hiring algorithm, but because typically women weren't in certain positions, it kind of left women out and it even downgraded their resumes. So what AI did was it looked for any indication that there was a woman in the resume, right? So terms like women's chess club or the fact that they graduated from an all women's college, right? And because of that, they were put like lower down in the hiring status and weren't even given the opportunity to be interviewed. So Amazon got rid of this hiring algorithm, but it shows the potential for real harm that AI can do, right? And then just some other examples, right? We usually see this with like Snapchat, but beauty algorithms do prioritize and reinforce the dominant narrative by making these filters that are really that kind of model Eurocentric features, right? Which can kind of erase or make diverse identities seem less important or less valuable. And then this other study by Bulamwani and Jibru actually found that facial recognition was pretty bad at detecting or successfully detecting darker skinned women. So it got it wrong a lot of the time. And again, that can have dire consequences, especially if AI and facial recognition is used for things like policing. Okay. So that's the first harm. So let's move on to the second harm. So I don't think these slides made it, but that's okay. I can talk about it really quick. So
Okay.
no, all good, all good. So the second harm had to do with the unequal access to AI. And that's kind of self-explanatory, right? Basically, access to AI and the skills needed to use AI are not equally distributed. Often you need some money, some wealth in order to have access to AI, and you need access to education in order to know how to use AI, right? So if this is not equally distributed, of course, this widens inequalities in healthcare, education, and employment. And then the third and final harm, right, is AI's environmental impact. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the data centers are usually located in marginalized communities. And part of the reason for this has to do with the cost. It's just cheaper to put it there. And also with the fact that in these communities, they're less likely to resist because they have less resources to actually resist. But there's a lot of health concerns that come with the data centers, right? They use up a lot of resources and they create a lot of pollution. So this essentially perpetuates environmental injustice. Okay. So then, of course, given these 3 harms that seem pretty dire and specific to the marginalized community, it leads us to ask the question, well, does AI also hinder autonomous agency? And while that might seem, again, like kind of an academic term, or why do we care about autonomous agency? It's actually really important. It's the core of who we are as human beings. So autonomous agency really refers to our capacity to make decisions that are our own decisions, right? So the capacity to self-determine, okay? So this autonomous agency, or this capacity, this rational capacity, of course, is based in our ability to reason and to make decisions. It's also based in our God-given dignity, right? So this part of ourselves that's meant to be respected, okay? So if we don't have autonomous agency, not only can we not self-determine and make our own lives, essentially, our dignity is also not being respected in that sense, okay? So autonomous agency, in order to respect it, right, and respect our dignity, it also tells us to treat people as ends in themselves, which means treat people in a way that you're respecting that they can make their own decisions and they can determine their lives for themselves. So given the harms that I just mentioned, we're questioning if any of this is actually hindered or undermined, right? Okay, so next slide. Okay, so what are these threats to autonomous agency? And I apologize for this really, content-packed slide. I just thought it was so important, and I know some people are more visual. So here we are. So essentially, first, if AI treats marginalized groups as data points, right? So they're just data points in the algorithm, and okay, women are definitely downgraded, and just because they're a data point, right? It risks treating individual people, as mere means. So they're not being treated as ends in themselves. Essentially, their dignity is not being respected, right? This happens because AI is often just using aspects of a person's social identity to determine their worth in some sense. So are they worthy enough to be included in the hiring process? Are they worthy enough to be given this loan, right? Just based on their social identity. So it's not really taking the full person into account if they're just being treated in this way, right? So that's the first threat to autonomy. Second, if AI perpetuates stereotypes, right, which there are studies that have shown that it does this, right, and then people use AI to guide their perceptions of people, right, of marginalized people specifically, and to guide their actions towards the marginalized, then those who are marginalized might not be able to effectively shape their lives because they're just not given the chance, right? It's kind of like their lives are being predetermined in a sense here, right? So some examples of AI perpetuating stereotypes can be found here on the slide, where there's been studies done that LLMs really exhibit gender bias, right? So it'll associate terms like nurse with women, right? Or like the pronouns she and her. And then doctor with men, or the pronouns he, right? So all of this really, perpetuates the fact that, okay, women belong in some area and men don't, right? So this gender bias, right? And then the third threat to autonomy here is that if AI algorithms perpetuate inequality, right, structures of oppression will be maintained, which again, of course, threatens the autonomous agency of marginalized groups. So how do we see this? Well, we see this in the biased algorithms in hiring, like we just talked about with Amazon, which would deny some people who maybe deserve to be given an opportunity. It might deny them the opportunity just because, again, of their social identity and the determination of AI, right? And of course, being denied opportunities unjustly affects a person's ability to really determine their lives for themselves, okay? So these are all the threats, but I promise it's not all bad. So what can we do? Next slide.
Okay, just for those who have never seen LLM before, that stands for large language model. So large LLM, same thing as large language models, and you'll see that in the literature, in social media, in the media, what have you. So when you hear LLM, you know that they're talking about, for the most part, AI, large language models.
Yeah, so like an example is like ChatGPT. So
Exactly.
sorry, I should have made that clearer.
No worries.
But right, so what can we do, right? Can we actually ensure that the marginalized are not negatively impacted and they do benefit from AI? Well, people have tried to figure this out, and then they've written studies on it. But with our ethical standards, I think we can also see how we can really address this problem. So the first thing that I think is clear to do is that the development of AI should include marginalized voices, right? And especially experts on the topics that they're being experts on, and diverse data as well, right? So instead of just including historical data, try to include more diverse data into the LLMs. This ensures the dignity of every person is honored and the welfare of all is centered. So this has to do with standards 1 and 2, right? And then this prevents people from being reduced to mere data points. This is standard 4, right? And it ensures all are participating in AI development. So this goes back to our 6th standard as well. Another thing we can do is that developers should partner with communities, right, to ensure equal access and training, right? So again, this would address that second harm of unequal access. If you partner with communities, you can actually see what they need and how you can help. So this ensures AI is designed to reduce inequalities and can foster human development for all, back to our 2nd standard. A third recommendation is to implement laws to hold AI implementers and developers accountable, right? Accountability is really important here to make sure that there's no harm or injustice being done. So this, again, ensures AI is developed with mechanisms for transparency and accountability, going back to our 3rd standard, and that they're aligned with ecological ethics and peace building, addressing our 5th standard. And then lastly, I think it's just really important to inform and educate the public, right? Instead of just not telling people that AI has bias built into it and everyone thinking that they, can just trust AI and whatever it says, if people are informed, they can make decisions for themselves, allowing them to actually act more autonomously, right? Use their rational capacity in a better sort of way. So this ensures people are encouraged and empowered to make judgments for themselves, bringing us to that 7th standard. And that's all for that.
Great, thank you. So you're probably wondering, now that we covered the theological, philosophical aspect of AI, artificial intelligence, what are our next steps? So we're going to share with you some of the next steps that we have in mind for artificial intelligence. So one, just so you know, here at St. Thomas University, the first bullet is we are going to ensure that our students are well prepared, and we are embedding AI education across disciplines, not just in computer science. Second bullet, we've recently created an introduction to AI course, an AI course that will be part of our general education requirements, and we have integrated foundational AI concepts into our first year university prep class. And the last bullet is this ensures that every student, regardless of major, is equipped to understand and responsibly engage in AI tools. Also, what we required this semester and moving forward is the actual 7 standards that I shared with you in the chat function here, Teams, is that all syllabi of all the courses that are being offered at St. Thomas are required to have that link. And faculty members, professors, are encouraged to have a healthy discussion with students regarding those 7 standards as students engage with artificial intelligence, whether it be ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, any other chat box. In my class, I'm teaching a class this semester, and I'm actually showing students how to use the tools such as Copilot, Gemini, and Grok. I'm teaching a class on applied research methods, and actually yesterday it was interesting that I was helping students identify a population, statistically significant population for a project that they're going to do in the class. And so I gave them the steps, all the prompts to run through ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini. My preference is Gemini because it apparently is tied to Google Scholar, so it's more scientific or scholarly. And I went group for group. There's about 8 groups in the classroom, and I went to 2 groups, and I saw them do the procedure, right? The procedural aspect of the assignment, going into the chat bot and what have you. And then the student said, well, professor, this makes no sense. I am into women, the WNBA, Women National Basketball Association. And what this system is telling me, what AI is telling me, is really incorrect. And I said, you know what? This is a learning experience for you. This is a teachable moment for you, where you see clearly that you cannot take at face value what this technology is giving you right now. And it was an aha moment for that student. It was the same example. I can repeat the same example with 2 or 3 groups that I was working with yesterday. And so I guess lessons learned for everyone is don't take what you read at face value. I think there's a saying, not everything that shines is gold. And certainly that's applicable to AI. right? Be skeptical at this point. Do your due diligence. I'm recommending that students use multiple chatbots such as Gemini, ChatGPT, and run those prompts in parallel to see what these different chatbot systems reproduce, and then come to an educated conclusion, right? And so we're learning as we're evolving that at least when we're educating or teaching students that we need to be more honed in on critical thinking and higher order decision making skills for students. And so it's going to kind of change the dynamics of teaching and learning here all over the world, not only in the US, obviously, but all over the world in terms of how students learn in a formal academic setting, whether it's K through 12, whether it's a technical degree, whether it's higher education. So I wanted to share that with all of you. Also, we're building out a database of effective best practices. So we actually put a call to all our faculty members and our staff and administrators to find out what they're doing with regards to artificial intelligence. And we're actually going to host an AI conference, a national conference here at St. Thomas in January. So we're going to bring scholars from all over the country, experts in IT, to talk about AI, not only in education, but in other aspects of what we do every day, healthcare, law, et cetera. Like I said, we are promoting the ethical use of AI among students at all levels, so not only undergraduates, but also at the master's levels and PhD levels as well. We're making sure that we create assignments, and we're asking students to go and use these tools, this technology, so they know how to use it, right? An example that you can see on your screen. I gave you another example about research methods course that I'm teaching as well. And then the last thing, which is equally important, is teach students how to cite the AI use in different formats. And so, as you know, these standards, like we had mentioned, don't necessarily just apply to education. They apply to business and economics, health sciences and medicine, law and human rights, education, computer science and data analytics, and the list goes on and on and on. And so this is why AI is super critical, in particular, the ethical standards that we have identified here at St. Thomas University, which, as I had said at the beginning of the webinar, for those of you who weren't able to join earlier, that the seven standards are universal. It's not, they weren't just an abstract academic exercise. They're universal, no matter what your faith might be. They could be applied to whatever industry, which is the wonderful aspect of the seven standards. Anecdotally, I wanted to share something also. Yesterday, I was representing St. Thomas at a human resource conference up in Pembroke Pines. So there were about maybe like 300 plus, maybe some of you even actually went to that conference. There were about 300 plus people, attendees, and there were vendors and organizations. And there were two companies that came to me, to my booth, because St. Thomas had a booth, and said, you know what, I'm so impressed that St. Thomas is here. I wanted to share with you that we've actually started using these seven standards, and we're using it from an HR perspective. So we're going through your standards and fleshing out or developing certain policies and procedures. So that really lit up my day, right? It made me very excited to hear that people are starting to use these seven standards in industry. I'll move on to the next slide. So, and you're probably wondering, okay, we talked about academia, higher education, but what about corporate America or industry? It could be corporate America, it could be non-for-profits, it could be NGOs, non-governmental organizations, whatever the case might be, is that an organization has to create an AI policy. So this is an AI policy, and I actually used Gemini and ChatGPT, and I merged both of the prompts, and this is what both systems gave me. So it's a very high level overview, right? The AI policy. The policy establishes principles and standards for the responsible use, development, and deployment of artificial intelligence technologies across company A. So I won't name the company that I use. I'm going to use company A. It ensures AI supports our mission to connect people and possibilities without upholding trust, while upholding trust, safety, and ethical practices. And then it also provided acceptable uses of AI and prohibited uses of AI. Remember, this is like a sample AI policy that a company X, Y, and Z, company A could use. What we're learning is a lot of companies don't have a policy right now. And we're learning that because we're actively, St. Thomas, the Institute for Ethical Leadership, is actively engaging with corporations, companies, different government entities, and they're telling us we don't have an AI policy. We need to use your standards. We need your help in order to craft and draft our guidance on AI policy. So it's interesting that the ChatGPT listed out some acceptable uses of AI. One would be enhancing logistics, routing, and packaging tracking. An example is supporting predictive maintenance and operational safety, improving customer support, the responsible use of AI chatbots and assistance, strengthening fraud detection, cybersecurity, and risk management. And the last one, driving innovation in supply chain delivery, automation, and sustainability initiatives. And then it produced prohibited uses of AI. So the first bullet under that section is any use that violates laws, human rights, or companies' AI ethical standards, AI systems that enable discrimination, surveillance without authorization, or infringement of employee customer privacy. And the last bullet is fully autonomous decision-making in disciplinary, employment or safety critical scenarios without human oversight. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list, but I would encourage you, for those of you who work at a company, organization, and are in the industry, and again, whether it's corporate, NGO, NFP, is that you look at, from an HR perspective, with an AI policy on AI. We would love that you'd use our 7 standards in order to guide you as using your ethical compass, if you will, and guiding your ethical policy. We feel that you do that. It's just an example, a very high level overview of a suggested AI policy. And then we move over to the next slide. And so what I did is, when we published the 7 standards on ethical AI, like I said, it was not only an academic exercise, but with in mind that we wanted people to be able to use these across disciplines, across industries. And actually, Dr. Viduera, Father Hilliard, were very involved in the final decision-making of the final 7 ethical standards. And so I was thinking, well, what's going to probably happen is the person who is not Catholic will probably say, well, how am I going to use this? Why would I even care? Because they're based on Catholic social teaching or the Catholic intellectual tradition. And so what I did is I started to create a framework, a rubric, if you will. And so what I did is I mapped each standard to this matrix. So if you look on your screen, these are just 2 examples. It's by no means an exhaustive list. It's just to show you kind of how to go about using the 7 ethical standards in real world scenarios or cases. So if you go to your screen, left to right, you have the first column. It's the Social Catholic Teaching Standard, which is formation and solidarity and participation. Then you have the next column over is our application to artificial intelligence. Basically, AI should foster subsidiarity and solidarity by enabling all, especially those often left on the margins of technological change, to actively participate in shaping its development in ethical direction. And then the intended outcome, because right now, for those of you in non-academia or higher education, or even now so within higher education, we're looking at KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And so we as an organization need to measure, how are we moving the needle in our strategy, whatever that strategy might be, right? And so the next column over would be the intended outcome. So what we want to do is increase solidarity. We want to increase collaboration and care for the well-being of all. Local communities retain control over decisions that affect them. And then the last column is, how do I measure this particular standard? And so there we give examples, right? You want to do surveys measuring trust, cooperation, and relationships. You want indicators of collaboration across sectors. You want an analysis of policy and practice aligning with solidarity goals. That could be your internal policies, making sure that they align with this particular standard of formation and solidarity and participation. You want surveys of community satisfaction and participation. You want surveys of your employee. You want to do a pulse of your customers. You want to do the pulse of your employees to see if, in fact, you're walking the walk and talking the talk when it comes to this particular standard of formation and solidarity and participation. And then if you go to the next table over, that's the standard that speaks to the primacy of human judgment. So if you go to the application to artificial intelligence, in essence, that is, AI must be governed by virtue of temperance, ensuring that its development and application are morally ordered, properly measured, and always directed toward human flourishing. As we've been saying throughout this webinar, we want to focus not only on the common good, but we want to focus on the basis of all of this, which is human dignity, human flourishing, safeguarding the primacy of human judgment in all decision making. So the intended outcome for this would be decision making remains under the control of humans with oversight, and AI serving as a tool to aid, not replace, human judgment. So you're probably wondering, how am I going to measure this? Well, the next column or the last column over is, you can do audit reports or reviews which show human approval or intervention in key decisions influenced by AI, demonstrating that final judgment consistently rested with a human and not specifically just with the output of AI, whatever application or technology you might be using. So we'll go on to the next slide. So some resources. You're probably wondering, well, where do I get resources? Where do I learn more about this? I would encourage you to follow all our social media accounts. That's all St. Thomas social media accounts. We're very active in publishing and posting on the STU, St. Thomas University LinkedIn account. Also, if you go to our new website, we recently launched a beautiful website back in May. It's beautiful and it's very easy to navigate, very intuitive, user-friendly. If you go all the way down to the bottom of the website, on the landing page of the website, you'll see press releases. And there, click on that link, and you're going to be seeing all the press releases that we're sending through Presswire. And this is just one example. We put a press release back on July 24th, 2025, on the 7 standards for ethical use of artificial intelligence. And I'm super excited because we know that the Associated Press picked up this press release, which is a big deal, right? Whether you're in academia or corporate America or whatever industry, if Associated Press picks up your press release, it's because there's some value to what you're producing and giving to the world. This is our gift to the world, if you will. So again, a resource would be go to our press releases where you can read about what we're doing here at St. Thomas, not only within the Institute of Ethical Leadership, but throughout the university at large. And then for those, you might want to also Google NBC6. As a result of our standards for ethical AI, we are invited on NBC6 a couple of weeks ago to talk about the impact of these standards on K through 12. That was the beginning of the school year. They wanted to know about AI and how ethical it was, how safe it was, et cetera. And so we were able to talk to the public through NBC about our standards in their application to K through 12, which is elementary school, junior high, and high school, for those of you who are not familiar with the term K through 12. Also, upcoming events. So again, I would encourage you to go to our LinkedIn account because we publish all our upcoming events. If you enjoyed this webinar, we'll have more in the future. For this fall term, which ends in December, we have the first row on your screen is we have actually AI in higher education. We have a panel discussion with a group from Uruguay who's going to come to campus to learn about AI. It's kind of like a cross-cultural kind of panel to learn what they're doing in Uruguay compared to what we're doing here in the US in terms of AI in higher education. If this is of interest to you, it's on campus only. You'll see our registration link on social media, and that's on September 22nd. And then go down. So for example, the next event is on October the 8th. It's about Orange Theory with Ellen Latham. She's the founder of Orange Theory. She's going to come to campus to talk about her leadership journey, although not particular to AI. That's an event that you can participate if this is of interest to you. Also, we have another webinar on the 29th of October. This is all about AI ethics and healthcare patient rights. It's a live online webinar. We're actually going to have an executive from the American Medical Association. She's going to be on the webinar along with expert scholars and researchers talking about patient rights within healthcare. And then the next one down would be Rita Case from Rick Case Automobiles. And the last webinar for this year, again, I'm sharing the different events that we have until December. We already have the spring all lined up, so please keep informed through our social media accounts. The last one is AI ethics in the law. Also, it's going to be a phenomenal webinar. We actually have the OIG, the Inspector General for Palm Beach County. The Institute for Ethical Leadership is working very closely with her department, and the reason why is we're going to start to publish opinion papers, best practices on the use of artificial intelligence and municipalities, their laws, their ordinances, and the impact of AI on those ordinances laws. So that's going to be a really interesting webinar on November the 24th on AI ethics in the law. And as we move forward, we can open it now. We have about 8 minutes or so with Q&A. We're going to open the Q&A up. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. If you don't, if you want to say something through your camera, just unmute yourself and you can feel free to ask the question and we'll answer your question. We'll try to answer your question. So let me read the chat here to see if anyone has said anything. Okay, wonderful. Yes, of course. We will be able to share the slide deck with you. We would be more than honored to share it with everyone who joined. And we also recorded the webinar. And so we're going to send it to our marketing team. They're going to make it nice and pretty, edit, and we're going to share it with the public. So those of you who weren't for those people who weren't able to attend, they can view it on their own. And of course, we'll share the slide deck with you via email. A great question. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions regarding the 7 standards, the common good, human dignity, autonomy of the marginalized? No questions. So when I don't get a lot of questions, it means that we're very thorough and we addressed all your questions during the webinar. So we're going to let you go a little bit early. We're finishing up about 5 minutes early. So thank you once again for participating on this webinar. We are honored that you took time out of your busy schedules to participate and look forward to future webinars. We hope to be in touch with you. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
I think there are some questions in the chat now.
Oh, okay. Now, okay, they're coming in. Okay. So
They
one
are
is,
coming in.
okay.
Which
So,
department have been missed?
okay. So I can read it, Father. Which departments have been most receptive to AI use on campus, and where have you seen resistance? That's a great question. So I would encourage you to come to our in-person on campus if you're local here in South Florida to learn what Uruguay is doing. And on that panel, we're going to actually have our CIO, our Chief Information Officer, and he's going to talk about all the interesting and cool things that we're doing here at St. Thomas regarding AI. Everything from registration, when we launched a pilot when people call into St. Thomas University. It's actually not a human, but an AI that's answering the phone calls and routing phone calls accordingly. But to your answer to this question, I am so thrilled to say that we have not met any resistance across St. Thomas University of anyone not wanting to use AI, unless, Father, you've heard of a group or department that has given resistance. But I think everyone here at St. Thomas is fully embraced with the idea that the AI is here and it's here to stay, and we need to embrace it ethically, right? Emphasis added with ethically. Father, have you heard any departments or areas that have pushed back on AI?
Not at all. Rather, what I have seen is that people are more eager and more open to AI now. And they now see AI as something that can be used in a collaborative way to promote what they are doing in their various departments.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a big part of it is because our leadership team at St. Thomas is really encouraging embracing the use of artificial intelligence. And before the academic year, we had several training sessions. So bringing to faculty and staff AI and kind of like minimizing the fear of the use of AI. I think a lot of folks are fearful of AI because they don't know it, they don't understand it, they don't know how to use it. But that's not obviously the way to approach any type of technology. The way to learn about the technology, obviously, is to use it, embrace it, and see how it could benefit humankind, which is what our goal is here at St. Thomas, is to make sure that we're using AI technology ethically for humankind. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions, Fathers. Do you see any other question?
No.
No. All right. Well, on that note, thank you, everyone, again. Have a great weekend, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. God bless you, everyone.
Thank you.